So it gives me great pleasure to welcome this morning Bishop Stuart Bell. For those who don't know you, Stuart, could you just introduce yourself and just allow people to know who you are and just a little bit of your background? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. I'm Devonian by birth, so Torquay was my childhood home. I came under the influence of Baptists when I was young, and finally gave my life to the Lord when I was 17. And along with my conversion was a sense that the Lord was calling me into church leadership. And it was really quite strange how the two went side by side. And when I made my commitment to Christ, I made my commitment that I would follow that as a life vocation, that I would give myself to serving the Lord within the context of the local church. I'd already in my teenage years made the move between the Baptists and the Anglicans. I'd done that because the Baptists required, if you were to be baptized, that you stood and testified to your conversion experience. And it wasn't until I was 17 that I had that and had that certainty of coming to the Lord. And I was being invited to be baptized in the Baptist church several years earlier than that. So I found a home in Anglicanism where actually there were no questions asked.
Okay.
So that became my spiritual home. That was the age of 17. University in Exeter, studying theology. A couple of years in the Midlands in Coventry, because by that stage I'd been accepted as an ordinand. So they'd said, we recognize that you've got a call to ordained ministry, but you need some life experience. So I worked for 2 years in Coventry, and then during that time experienced a call to come to Wales as a missionary. So I've been in Wales as a missionary.
Lovely.
For the last 53 years.
So you've traveled a bit, really, in your ministry as far as seeking where the Lord was leading you. So fast forward now to where you're at now, at this stage of your ministry. I just need to explain to people as well that there's a little bit of a delay in the internet connection, and we've tried to resolve that. So please bear with us that there is this delay, but that's just as a word of explanation. But Stuart, fast forward and tell us, where are you at now? What's happening?
Well, just to fill in the blank between ordination and today, in 53 years, we've moved 30 miles. So I was curate in Aberavon with Bertie Lewis, a man of considerable stature. From there to the Tavy Valley, Llangela near Llandysil, back then to Aberavon, and then from Aberavon to Aberystwyth. So we really haven't moved far once we'd come to Wales. Where I am now, we are retired, living in Borth, which is 6 miles north of Aberystwyth, still on the coast. Borth and a Gymraeg. And what's happened this year has been really quite interesting to me, in that I've been consecrated as a bishop. So here I am in retirement, 10 years into retirement. I finished in 2013, and last year I had Bishop Andy Lyons here in our house in the kitchen, and he said, was I willing to become an assistant bishop to him and to work alongside him in what's called the Anglican Convocation in Europe. Now, I and quite a number of other people had already left the church in Wales. We left the church in Wales 2 years ago, 6th of September 2021. The church in Wales made a decision, the bench of bishops and the governing body made a decision that they would step away from the Bible and particularly on the issue of gay relationships, which they chose to bless, really in contradiction to what the Bible teaches. And there was a substantial number of us, clergy and lay people, who stepped away from the church in Wales at that time, but didn't want to stop being Anglicans. I've been an Anglican now for 60 years, and I don't want to change from that. And so we have aligned ourselves with a movement called GAFCON, which is a movement that began, an international movement that began in 2008. It began in Jerusalem with a major conference. And they produced something called the Jerusalem Statement, which you can find online. And they produced a new alignment of Anglicans worldwide. So those of us who have stepped away from the church in Wales are now in communion with and in fellowship with GAFCON, and there's another similar movement called the Global South. These are all Orthodox, scripture-based, faithful Anglicans. And so I now am the assistant bishop, caring for Anglicans of the same mind across the whole of Wales. Yeah, my responsibilities are only in Wales. There is, I have a fellow bishop in Scotland who's doing the same as I am, and 2 bishops in England who are doing the same as I am. And we are all under the presiding bishop, and his name is Andy Lyons. He happens to live in the Isle of Wight. So he's responsible for the whole of Europe, including the UK.
Yeah. Okay. So you're the assistant bishop to him, and then, but the main bishop, if there is such a term, to Wales. Okay, I've got the picture. So, well, thank you, Stuart, for sharing for that, and sort of helping us get clarity really about the structure of what's going on, because we hear about what's going on in the church in Wales, but we don't. And Anglicanism, but not everybody follows it. Not everybody is familiar with the structures. So thank you for explaining that in such a way that we can understand.
Fine.
So let me ask you about, because I know that you're leading a fellowship now in. Remind me again. Is it in Aborth where the fellowship is?
No, it's in Rhydypennau, which is the top end of Bow Street.
Okay.
There's a pub, a craft centre, and a school in Rhydypennau, and a village hall, and that's where we meet.
So the fellowship, if I'm correct, is called Fellowship 345, and simply because you meet at 3:45 on a Sunday afternoon. So one of the things that I was one of the things I was thinking about, as you were saying, you've been retired for 10 years, is that when God calls to ministry, I don't believe that we ever retire. It's just we go into a different season. So you've been retired for 10 years, but yet you're leading a fellowship. So explain it to us how that came to be. Can you?
Yeah. Yes, the only difference between now and 10 years ago is that 10 years ago, I was receiving a salary, and now I'm not. But I suppose this is the proof that when I was receiving a salary, I wasn't receiving it in order to compensate for my work, but just to make sure that the work was possible. So the money was there to support us. Now I'm supported by my pension, and I don't need an income. So I'm happy to do what I'm doing. The way that it came into being was that along with the church in Wales stepping away from scripture as it did, there were 5 couples linked together in this area who said, if that's the direction of travel that the church in Wales is going to take, then what about us providing a spiritual home for people who are grieving over that and who need support and encouragement and a place to belong? And so the vision was to provide a Sunday afternoon service that didn't compete with morning services anywhere, and it didn't compete with evening services, although there aren't very many left that still meet in the evening in this area. But to meet in the middle of the afternoon meant that this could be an additional service rather than an alternative service for those who wanted to be part of what we were doing. And so the first Sunday of October 2021, we started to meet together. There was a good turnout for the first Sunday of people who wanted to encourage us, but then we settled at around the mid-30s to start with. By now, 2 years later, we're around 60 every Sunday, and we are affiliated to the Anglican Convocation, as you would imagine. And so we are Anglican in our ethos, but we are also affiliating to the Evangelical Alliance. So we are both evangelical Anglicans or Anglican evangelicals, whichever way round you want to put those two words. And we are content to be so. A fair number of people who stepped away from the church in Wales 2 years ago have gone to nonconformist churches, but there are a fair number of us who, as I said earlier on, wanted to continue to be Anglicans. And so this is giving us a local expression of Orthodox Anglicanism that is in communion with 85% of the Anglicans around the world. So we have a local ministry, but we also have an international perspective to the life of our church.
Wow, that's wonderful. Can I just listening to you, can I just commend you on the honourable way that you've gone about this? Because on the one hand, you didn't want to compete, really, for use of a better word, with other services. You didn't want to draw people away from what was already going on within the Anglican Church. So, in having that meeting at 3:45, you made sure that you weren't competing or clashing with those and drawing people away. But yet, on the other hand, the reason it's honourable is because you've listened to the call of some Anglicans who needed fellowship, who were recognised that their future wasn't in the Church of Wales, but you've been able to gather them. So I think it's very honourable, Stuart, the way that you've managed to balance that, and that's just in passing. And it's the first time I've heard you share why this fellowship, why you felt the need to bring this fellowship. So it's wonderful. So you're obviously seeing fruit through numbers, but we both know that numbers is not always the indicator of a healthy church. So it's encouraging to hear that you're growing, obviously, and I'm not taking anything away from that. What about other sort of fruit? What about other ways that you feel God is encouraging you within your church community? What signs are you seeing that God is at work here?
Yeah, there are a couple of things. One is that the first Sunday of September, we had a public baptism in the sea at Barth. Two
Wonderful.
Young women who are members of our congregation testified to their commitment to Christ, and they were baptized by immersion in the sea. And that was a wonderful occasion. The Lord blessed us with calm water and blue skies. It was a great day. Also, one of our leaders is he ran a Christianity Explored course, which now has become a Discipleship Explored course, and he's had 12 or 15 people who followed that weekly, and that has been leading to considerable spiritual development amongst the people who are coming. So there's plenty to encourage us. In addition to that, one of the principles that we're committed to is developing the gifts as we see them of people who are members of the congregation. And so we are giving extensive opportunities to people to participate in Sunday worship, but also to develop as preachers. So we've given, I think, 5 or 6 inexperienced people the opportunity to preach. We're doing what Wales used to do a long time ago, which was to have double-barreled sermons. So 2 people preaching on a Sunday, both of them committed to preaching for 10 to 15 minutes. Usually an inexperienced person alongside an experienced person, picking up similar themes, but helping them then to learn from one another and to grow in an environment where they're being encouraged and supported by the whole congregation. And that's it's wonderful to see. We're enjoying that.
Wow. You see, I would love to pick that up. As a preacher, I would love to pick that up with you, but I'm not going to. I'm going to resist the temptation of going down that sort of rabbit hole, if you like. But just hearing what you're sharing about the baptisms and the discipleship groups and excuse me, and encouraging people to use their gifting, that is really exciting. Really exciting. That excites me because I wasn't aware from the conversation that we had leading up to this recording this conversation. I wasn't aware that so much was going on, but listening to you, Stuart, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. So what I'll do is, with your agreement, I'll put some contact details on the description, and if anybody wants to get in touch with you, with the church, then it's Fellowship 345, and I'll put some details in the description on the YouTube channel. But there's a couple of other things I want to talk to you about, and it's with your permission, it's with your consent that I'm going to ask you about the health challenges that you've recently encountered. And I feel that you've been very gracious in wanting to talk about this, because the reason you want to talk about it is to encourage other Christians, whether they be leaders, whether they be part of the congregation, and you just want to help people as they may face similar challenges, health challenges in the future. So, Stuart, explain to us, share with us about the health challenges you've been having and the heart you want to share in order to encourage and edify people. And thank you.
Yeah, about 3 or 4 months ago, I had a biopsy on a lump on my chest, which was confirmed to be breast cancer, which is really unusual in a man. There are 300 cases a year across the United Kingdom of men, as against 48,000 cases of women. So this is really very unusual. Made me feel very special to be told that I had this. So subsequently, I've had a mastectomy. That was 6 weeks ago, along with all of my lymph glands removed. And now I'm on a course of chemotherapy. I was told before it started that chemotherapy was pretty unpleasant, and I'd been told that by others too. And I can confirm it. It's very unpleasant. I had my first dose a fortnight ago. First week was awful. This week's much better. I've got another week to go before the next one. But one of the members of our congregation came to me after the operation and after I'd been in hospital, and he said to me, "What's the Lord taught you?" Which was a pretty searching question, really. And I've got 2 responses to that now. I wasn't able to articulate it immediately when he asked me that. The first is that the Lord deals with us very much as individuals. The natural thing that we do as Christians with our friends who are in need is we try to send them verses from the Bible that we've found encouraging for ourselves. And quite a number of people sent me cards with Bible verses in them. And to be honest with you, the Bible verses were their verses that encouraged them. Yeah. And they didn't especially speak to me. And the way that the Lord has spoken to me has been a surprise. He's spoken to me through music, and most particularly through a song from Keith and Kristen Getty. And I've got the words in front of me here. And this is what it says. It's a prayer. And it says, "Jesus, draw me ever nearer as I labor through the storm. You've called me to this passage. and I'll follow, though I'm worn. May this journey bring a blessing. May I rise on wings of faith, and at the end of my heart's testing, with your likeness, let me wake. Jesus, guide me through the tempest. Keep my spirit stayed and sure. When the midnight meets the morning, let me love you even more. Let the treasures of the trial form within me as I go. And at the end of this long passage, let me leave them at your throne. That's the song that anchored me over the last 2 or 3 months. But there's been one other thing. That's one aspect of the way that the Lord has spoken to me. The other aspect is that one of my friends was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and then a month after that, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And I went to pay a visit as a friend, but also a pastoral visit. And in the course of our conversation, he looked at me and he said, "I have a future." Well, that's pretty impressive by anybody's standards. And I'm able to say, after a mastectomy, in the middle of chemotherapy, knowing that I've got radiotherapy after that, and tamoxifen after that, I have a future.
Amen.
I have
Amen.
a future here, and I have a future there, and it's guaranteed. Amen. So these are the things I'm learning. Yeah.
Lovely. Well, personal illness is something that we don't always want to speak publicly about. We'll have closed sort of circles of people that we'll talk to. So for you to, not just be prepared to speak about this challenge that you're facing, but actually coming out of a heart of wanting to edify other people and encourage other people is very honourable, Stuart, and thank you for that. And I'm sure that what you've shared in this challenge that you're being faced with, I'm sure it'll be a great encouragement to others. So thank you for that. Okay. There's one final thing that I want to talk to you about, and that is your book. You've recently published the book last year, wasn't it? Is it 2022 that it was published?
Yes.
So I don't think I would be able to get away with not asking about the book, because I don't think you'd let me get away with not asking about the book. So tell us what the title is to start with, please.
Yes, it's the title is Recovering His Reputation, and its subtitle is Ministry from a Late Developer. So that's what we've called it.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so tell us a little bit about why you decided to write the book. What was on your heart?
Well, Recovering His Reputation was the strapline for St Michael's Aberystwyth during the time that I was there. So I was in ABBA for 25 years in ministry, and that was what we were aiming to do, really, was to recover the Lord's reputation. People don't think much of Christ these days, and we wanted to build a church that would go against the contemporary view of the church, which is that it's irrelevant, that it's unthinking, that it is old-fashioned, that it is impractical, that it doesn't have anything to say to contemporary society. And so we spent 25 years building on the foundation that had already been laid by my predecessor, who was Bertie Lewis, who I've already mentioned before. So building on that foundation, we established the largest Anglican church in the whole of Wales, with a congregation on a Sunday of 350 to 400 people, 500 different people between morning and evening services, and
wow.
A church which was substantial in every way, sending men and women for ordination, sending people for cross-cultural mission work to every continent in the world. And so recovering his reputation was our strapline. And ministry from a late developer is my reflection on it. Because when I retired, I felt as though I was ready to start, that I'd learned the lessons, I'd seen what was effective, I'd made my mistakes. And some people have said to me how honest the book is, and my answer to that is, the mistakes that I am most ashamed of, I wouldn't dare put in print. And I've concealed those from everybody. So if you want to read a book of mistakes, read Recovering His Reputation, but you'll only read the ones that I'm willing to let people know about. But there's a lot of accumulated wisdom of what was then 40 years of 40 plus years of ordained ministry. Lots of mistakes, but lots of good things that God did with us and through us. So there was much to celebrate, much to look back on. I think it's a good story.
Yeah. Well, as you know, as I'm listening to you share the fruit, really, of your time in St. Michael's, the thought that's going through my mind is that you've got something to say on this matter because you've seen the fruit as you've just shared. So, you know, I'm sure that it's a book full of wisdom, really, of the things that you've learned. Excuse me. Who would you say would benefit most from the book, Stuart? Is it those at leadership level, those at congregation level, or both? Who do you say would benefit most?
Well, it's been written with a view to inspiring leaders, but leadership is quite widely spread within every congregation, isn't it? So that in many churches there will be a leadership team, deacons and elders. There will also be those who are leading home groups and that kind of thing. So anybody who is involved at any level of church ministry, or really who wants to have to listen to what I would think is an inspiring story, I think it would that it crosses the board for many different people.
Lovely, lovely. So the book is called Recovering His Reputation, and I know that it's available on Amazon. I'm correct, aren't I?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Any other? Yeah. Any other?
It's also available from me. I've got some copies.
Okay. Okay. So what I'll try and do, Stuart, is you might get inundated though with requests for books from yourself, and but we'll chat about that as far as, because I would like to lead people to somewhere where they can buy the book, Amazon or yourself. So we'll arrange that. We'll have a chat about that. So as I bring this to a close, Stuart, I just want to thank you for taking the time really out with me this morning, but also, and I mean this, that I humbly mean this. You've been a faithful gospel servant in Wales for 50, 60 years or so, and continue to be. And I honour that in you. So it's important for me to share that with you. So is there anything that you want to share that we haven't touched on, but it's burning on your heart, or are we bringing this conversation to a close? Anything else?
No, I'm very happy with where we have finished now.
Lovely, lovely. So thank you very much then, Stuart, and God bless you.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll be in touch. I'm sure that there will be. This is one of those conversations that I'm sure that we will be able to revisit at some stage, maybe in 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, who knows? But I get a sense that there's a lot more that we need to talk about and that we need to share to encourage and edify the church in Wales, really, the body of Christ in Wales. So thank you very much, Stuart. And God bless you.
Not at all. God bless you too. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.